The NFL draft takes place on the 28th, so it only seems right if we do a mock draft. But instead of me doing it, it's going to be Madden. I present to you the Madden Mock 1.0. I don't want to keep you guys waiting any longer, so let's get right into it. So we are here in the first ever Madden 2022 NFL mock draft. I'm going to be doing a couple of these right before the draft, so be on the lookout for them. But how this is going to work is I'm just basically going to skim through each pick, give a brief summary of the team's top needs, and then we're obviously going to see who the team drafts. So with all that being said, first up on the clock is the Jacksonville Jaguars. So the top 3 needs that I have for them are defensive line, offensive line, and linebackers. But in most drafts, Aiden Hutchinson has been mocked to the Jacksonville Jaguars, so let's see if Madden holds that true. And with the first ever pick in the Madden mock draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select edge rusher Trayvon Walker from Georgia. Now this is actually interesting because he's been flying up the mocks in just this last week. Now the second team that we have here are the Detroit Lions. Now I have their top 3 needs as defensive line, quarterback, and wide receiver. I do think that defensive line and quarterback make more sense than a wide receiver at 2, but let's see what Madden thinks. And with the second overall pick, the Detroit Lions select Aiden Hutchinson, which I really want this to happen in real life, but I think this is the obvious pick if Aiden Hutchinson is there for the Lions. And now to number 3, we have the Houston Texans. Now it's pretty simple for the Texans. I have their team needs as just anything. They're basically like an expansion team again, which is kind of fun to rebuild, and they can just take the best player available. Let's find out who it is. And that player was Evan Neal from Alabama. Now I really like this move because they solidify both of their tackles. They can have Laramie Tunsil on the left side and Evan Neal on the right side. So good move, Houston. Now at number 4 we have the New York Jets. And their top needs are cornerback, safety, and D-line. And at number 4 they actually pick Ikem Ekwonu. So like the same thing with Houston, they solidify both of their tackle positions. But now we go over to the other New York team, and that's the Giants. The Giants' needs are offensive line, linebacker, and corner. So let's find out. And at number 5, the Giants pick Sauce Gardner. I really like this, and I want this to happen in real life too, because I think this would be just awesome. But that's a good pick from the Giants. Now we go to the Carolina Panthers, whose biggest needs are offensive line, quarterback, and linebackers. Now I could see them taking a quarterback, either Malik Willis or Kenny Pickett, but let's just find out. And they actually do neither of those things and get a left tackle in Charles Cross. He's arguably the 3rd best tackle in this class, but he is still a good prospect. Now we go back over to the Giants, and like I said, offensive line, linebacker, cornerback, probably not going to take a cornerback again. Do they go Devin Lloyd? Is that too high? And we actually have the first shocker pick of the draft, as they select quarterback Malik Willis. This would be a pretty shocking move if this were to happen in real life, but that's the first shock of this mock draft. And at number 8, we have the Atlanta Falcons. Their top needs being wide receiver, quarterback, and defensive line. I'd really like them to either take a quarterback or a wide receiver. And they actually go wide receiver Garrett Wilson from Ohio State. This is good with Calvin Ridley being suspended and probably not going to be a Falcon any longer. But this is a good building piece for the team. And now at number 9, it is the Seattle Seahawks. Now I have their 3 needs being offensive line, quarterback, and cornerback. But I would want them to take quarterback, because they just traded away Russell Wilson, and Drew Lock is not going to be the long-term answer. So let's find out. And the Seahawks actually take right end Jermaine Johnson, which I guess they needed that, but I would have really liked it if they went quarterback. Now we're back to the Jets. And their team needs, again, are cornerback, safety, and D-line. And they get safety Kyle Hamilton. Now this draft for the Jets is actually looking pretty good. And now at number 11, we have the Washington Commanders, with their biggest needs being offensive line, wide receiver, and quarterback. I put quarterback on here because I don't think Carson Wentz is the long-term answer, but I'd really want them to take wide receiver with this pick. But let's wait and see. And they actually go Kayvon Thibodeau. They have just created the best defensive line in all of football. Just that D-line, even Chase Young, Jonathan Allen, and Kayvon. And honestly, I guess I kind of like this too. So now we go over to the Minnesota Vikings, and they are selecting at 12. Now their top needs being cornerback, defensive line, and safety. Basically, just anyone on defense to make them better. But I really like them to pick Derek Stingley Jr. And that is where they go, as we get it right on point with Derek Stingley Jr. from LSU. And now we go back to the Texans, and obviously they need anything they can get. And they go middle linebacker Devin Lloyd, which actually fills in the gap for the release of Zach Cunningham. Now at number 14, we have the Baltimore Ravens, which this is a pretty good roster, but here is what I decided on for their top 3 needs. Cornerback, linebacker, and offensive line. I was going to put wide receiver on here, but I mean, they got Marquise Brown, they took Rashad Bateman in last year. I wouldn't want them taking another receiver again. And the Ravens take guard Zion Johnson, which is a very solid pick, and it checks off one of their team needs. So now we go over to Philadelphia on one of their 2 picks for this draft. I have their needs being linebacker, wide receiver, and offensive line. I would have really liked it if Devin Lloyd was here, but maybe getting a receiver like Chris Olave, Treylon Burks, or Jahan Dotson would really benefit them here. And they actually go Trent McDuffie, cornerback from Washington, which they did need cornerback help, but I would have rather had them take a receiver here. And now we go over to the New Orleans Saints, with their top needs being quarterback, wide receiver, and offensive line. Do they take a quarterback like Kenny Pickett, or do they go the wide receiver route? And they actually go wide receiver Drake London. Maybe the Saints will use their second selection on a quarterback. But now we go over to the Chargers, with their top needs being defensive line, wide receiver, and cornerback. Now I put wide receiver on here because if they find like a third weapon, I think that would be really beneficial. But let's see what they do with this pick. And they actually go linebacker Nakobe Dean, which is a very solid pick to pair with Kenneth Murray. But now we're back over to Philly. And again, they need linebackers, wide receiver, and offensive line. Now, do they go wide receiver here? This is very interesting. And they actually do. They actually get Treylon Burks. But getting Jalen Hurts another weapon is always good. And now we go back over to the Saints, and I would really want them to take a quarterback, maybe Kenny Pickett, or maybe Matt Corral. And that's exactly what they do. They go quarterback Kenny Pickett, which I did hear some rumors about this potentially happening, so I like it. And now at 20, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. Their top needs being quarterback, cornerback, and offensive line. Let's find out what they do. And they shock us here with wide receiver Jameson Williams. Now this is interesting because Jameson Williams is coming off of a torn ACL. I don't know if he'll exactly be ready for the start of the season, but pairing him up with Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool isn't a bad option either. And now we have the New England Patriots, with their top needs being wide receiver, defensive line, and cornerback. Now I would really like them to take a wide receiver here in this draft because it's so loaded, but let us find out. And they actually go guard Kenyon Green. I like this pick, but I would have rather went wide receiver or maybe defensive line. But hey, it's not the sexy pick, but it does get the job done. And now, this is a team that really would benefit by drafting a wide receiver. And it would be almost crazy if they did not take one. And that is the Green Bay Packers, with their top need being wide receiver. And then they have offensive line and linebacker. But this pick has got to be wide receiver, right? And guys, they did it. They drafted George Karlaftis. But they do have a second first-round pick, so it's not the end of the world, but come on, Green Bay, what are you doing? And now at 23, the Arizona Cardinals are selecting, with their top needs being wide receiver, offensive line, and cornerback. You're going to need an offensive line to compete against the Rams, and your only wide receiver now is basically DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, they still have Rondale Moore, but maybe another weapon would make Kyler Murray happy. And they actually get defensive tackle Jordan Davis, which is actually an interesting pick. I kind of like it. And now we move on to the Dallas Cowboys, with their top needs being offensive line, defensive line, and wide receiver, which I could see the Cowboys just taking best available player. It feels like they've been doing that the past couple of drafts, and I wouldn't be shocked if they continued it with this one. And they actually take wide receiver Chris Olave. And you can make an argument that he is the best player available right now. And now we go over to the Buffalo Bills. And this was kind of hard. I listed their team needs as cornerback, defensive line, and offensive line. But it feels like Buffalo's roster is just a really solid roster. But I can really see them taking best available player as well. And they take wide receiver Jahan Dotson. I mean, I guess I could see them going younger with this selection. But solid pick. So now we move on to the Tennessee Titans, with their top needs being linebacker, cornerback, and offensive line. I'd really want them to go linebacker here or cornerback. And they go center Tyler Linderbaum, which is actually a really solid pick. But they did sign Ben Jones to a 2-year extension, I believe. But maybe they can move him over to guard, or maybe they can move Tyler over to guard. But this is a very good pick. And next we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And this is another team with a solid roster. I mean, the offensive line did regress because they've lost a couple people. So I have their top needs being safety, defensive line, and offensive line. But I'd really like them to take an offensive lineman here. Ooh, this is a very spicy and interesting pick. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers selected quarterback Matt Corral. So it looks like Tampa is preparing for life after Brady. And now we're back to the Green Bay Packers, which this pick, it has got to be wide receiver. It has just got to be wide receiver. There's no other position that you can go. But again, it is Green Bay making the selection. So we'll just have to wait and see. And guys, I can't make it up. I mean, they went cornerback Andrew Booth Jr., which he's a good player, but dude, don't you think you get a wide receiver? You don't have any wide receivers on this roster. I mean, they just signed Sammy Watkins today, but it's wide receiver, man. And now we go over to Kansas City, which they're making 2 back-to-back selections. So I have their team needs being cornerback, defensive line, and then I could see them taking a wide receiver. So we're on to the first selection, and they go Devontae Wyatt, which is actually a really solid pick. But let's see what they go with their second selection. Ooh, they go left tackle Trevor Penning. I would have probably went somewhere else, but I mean, it's Kansas City. They're going to be good no matter what. So we're back to the Detroit Lions. And if you remember, I have their top needs being defensive line, quarterback, and wide receiver. Now, I would have really liked them to take a quarterback right here, maybe Desmond Ridder. So I don't know what happened here. I went to sim the pick and it didn't really do anything, so I'm going to try to do it again. Okay, but now it's on the Bengals and we took Breece Hall. I don't know, I had the team needs for the Bengals being cornerback, offensive line, and tight end. That's just a Madden pick right there. Breece Hall at the end of the first round. But anyways, I got to sim to the end of the draft because something glitched out and I couldn't see the Lions pick. Okay, so the Lions ended up taking Sam Howell, quarterback from North Carolina. I would have liked it to have been Desmond Ridder, but I like Sam Howell as well. But anyways, that is going to do it for this video. And if you guys enjoyed this mock draft, then consider leaving a like, and I would also appreciate it if you would consider subscribing. Anyways, let me know what you guys thought in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.